In this next lesson, we're going to be measuring and constructing angles of a certain measure. In order to measure angles, we use what we call a protractor, okay? So a protractor has numbers. If you look at the protractor, it has what we call a central point, okay? That's at that 90-degree mark, and it has numbers from 0 to 180 along the inside as well as the outside. And usually the confusion lies with students on which set of numbers to use. So hopefully that will clear this up. So you have this paper in front of you, and we're going to look at A, okay? So this angle, we can tell it's going to be an acute angle. It's less than 90 degrees, and we want to find the exact measure of this angle. So I'm going to take my paper, and I'm actually going to rotate my angle so that one of the sides of my angle is horizontal. It just makes it easier to measure. I'm going to take my protractor, and at my central point, which is where that cross, that T is at the bottom, that is where your vertex is going to go. So you're going to rest your protractor right on top of the vertex at that central point of the protractor. And then this side here, which is my horizontal side, we call the initial side of the angle. That's where our 0-degree mark starts. So you want to be able to identify which set of numbers you need. Here, since I'm starting at 0, I'm going to be looking at the inside set of numbers, okay? And I want to follow my eye or my pencil up to that terminal side, which here, that terminal side ends at 30 degrees. And therefore, our angle is 30 degrees. I could turn my paper the other way. Let's say you turned your angle so that now, and I'm going to erase this 30 degrees here. I'm going to turn my paper so now I'm looking at it just a slightly different way, right? So my initial side is now pointing to the left. So let's say you did it that way as your natural instinct to turn it to the left. I'm going to put my central point of my protractor still on that vertex. But now I'm going to be following the outside numbers since 0, which is my initial side, is on the outside of the protractor. So I follow my eye up and I still get 30 degrees for my angle. So I'd like you to continue this process with B, C, and D and see what you come up with. Use your protractor, measure the angles. So now would be a good time to pause. So pause the video and play me when after you've already measured all of your angles. So you can see that angle B would be 125 degrees. If I flip my paper over, angle C, I came up with 86 degrees. And angle D, I got 169 degrees. If you're off by plus or minus, give or take a degree, that's okay. But if you're getting these angles incorrect by more of a degree on either way, either direction, then something's wrong. You should really try to go back and remeasure these angles. Okay, so now in this section, we're actually going to construct angles of a certain measure. So I'm going to ask you to make an angle of 55 degrees. Okay, so to construct an angle of 55 degrees, you first take your protractor and draw that initial side. Here's our vertex, or what will be our vertex. So I'm going to line up my protractor so that central point lies on my vertex. And since my initial side is pointing to the right, I'll be following the 0, which lies on the inside. I'm going to go up to 55 degrees, put a little mark in there at 55 degrees. Use the straight edge of my protractor to connect the vertex with that 55-degree mark that I made. And there's my 55-degree angle. Now in your notebooks, I'd like you to construct an angle of 37 degrees and an angle of 143 degrees. Pause the video at this time, and when you're ready, you can replay to see what those angles should look like. Alright, so here we have our 37 degree, our acute angle, and our 143 degrees.